We all know Europeans take their travel very seriously. But what we may not know is just how different Europeans are from other travelers around the world. Because for Europeans, travel is the #1 discretionary spend, next to or ahead of electronics, home improvement, and dining and nightlife. Quite different in the US, where Americans prefer to dine out, to fix their homes, and to buy new toys before they're willing to spend money on travel. So in the US, travel is actually the 4th largest discretionary spend. Imagine that. And those lucky Europeans, they don't have to travel very far to travel internationally. As a matter of fact, more than half of them have left the country, traveled outside the borders of their own country, but within the European continent. Under a third have actually traveled outside of the European region. And with all those Europeans traveling and then all those visitors coming into the continent, we see a pretty healthy market, a 280 billion euro travel market in 2017. The nice thing is we saw a recovery from a slight decline in 2016. And at Phocuswright, we see the market to continue to accelerate about 2 to 3% over the next 5 years, despite the fact that there are all of these kind of clouds or challenges, as you will, that continue to impact the European market. Europe is very much an online market. 45% of European travelers tell us that they book all of their travel online. Now, this is UK, Germany, and France rolled up, and 44% tell us that they book both online and offline. So now let's look at this in terms of volume. So nearly half of all travel in Europe is booked online. Now, this is phenomenal when you consider that this is a continent that just about 10 years ago was really practically dominated by your high street travel agencies and your traditional tour operators. The fact that so much is online and so much is mobile, it just shows how this market has accelerated really over the past 5 to 8 years. But this still means that more than half of travel is booked offline. And we've talked about that over the past couple of days. There's still so much of that offline market left. And it's still true in Europe, and that's good news. That's good news for a lot of these players, right? And here you're looking at some of the online travel agencies in the region. There's lots of them because there's lots of different products, there's lots of different languages, different cultures. So we have lots of brands out there. They're basically doing pretty well. As a matter of fact, if you look on the right of this slide, this is European online travel agency growth. Now notice this is like 3 to maybe 4 times the growth of the market as a whole. These are really, really impressive numbers. But the market is not without its challenges. So for one, Europe is no stranger to consolidation. Let me give you an example. So just about 5 years ago, when you looked at the online travel agency market in Europe, and you looked at the 2 big companies and all their subsequent brands, they represented less than half of the online travel agency market. Now you look and see that it's up to 69% in 2017. So we're dealing with that continued consolidation in the region, and it's also a very supplier-dominated market. So for example, supplier direct dominates in almost every category, online category, except for hotel, where 2/3 of online hotel is booked through intermediaries. And there's also lots of need, this urge to expand outside of your sweet spot. And the reality is maybe you just can't be airline vertical anymore, or hotel vertical, or even packaging. That you need to go across all of these different, or at least a handful of these different verticals. But it doesn't stop there. We have to think of all these other types of businesses that now you have to consider to add to your portfolio. So I laid out the landscape, And what I'm going to do now is to introduce the head of one of Europe's largest e-commerce businesses. So our next speaker oversees strategy and operations for 4 leading online travel agency brands: eDreams, Go Voyage, Apodo, Travellink, and its meta search engine, Liligo. Please welcome the CEO of eDreams ODIGEO, Dana Dunne. Dana, come on out.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Lorraine. Hello, everyone.
I think, and tell me if I'm right, the last time we chatted on stage was 2015 in Dublin?
Yes, May 2015.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. You have a good memory.
I do. I did look it up, too. and well, I do remember it very clearly because it was about a year after eDreams ODIGEO went public.
Yes, exactly.
And there were some challenges. It was a challenging year.
It was, very much so. So we went public as a company. We started the business in around 2000, and it was a founder-led business up until I took over as CEO in January 2015. We did an IPO in April of 2014, and then really, I would be honest to say that it wasn't, we did not have a successful post-IPO transition to becoming a publicly traded and publicly listed company. And so there were some challenges in the business.
Was that the marketplace, or what was
it was a combination of things. It was a combination of the market, combination of the company, and I think just its position. And so I think, look, there was a feeling that there was a need for change for the company. And so I came in and took over as the CEO in January 2015, and have just really put on trying to build what was a good business to really just take it into another direction and really build upon a lot of the strengths it had to really build a really large scale and using our scale very effectively as a good customer-focused business. And so we've been growing very successfully, ever since.
Right. Since then, you've had a lot of momentum, for sure. So I just laid out some of the landscape in Europe, and one of them was the consolidation in the OTA space. Now, big news, but as it continues to consolidate with 2 global brands. And then, you guys are really number 3, but you're the largest, maybe pan-European brand or European-based online travel agency.
Yes.
So what kind of challenges does that create, though, as you're in this market with these 2 giant brands?
Yeah, so again, we are number 1 in flights in Europe. We have about 30% of the OTA market in Europe. We are number 1 or number 2 in just about every main European country. That position, it means just really that the brands are so strong from the customer point of view. And so really, if you're in, let's say, Spain, for example, most Spaniards would really have heard of eDreams, our main brand there. Whereas, for example, if you would be in, let's say, in Norway, most Norwegians would have heard of our brand Travellink there, et cetera, et cetera. So they really are very, very strong brands. And what it has been enabled us to do is, we have really worked on the customer service elements of it, the customer proposition, and we now have a place where we actually have the number 1 rated customer satisfaction scores of our competitors in the marketplaces, in our main markets. And we've been really diversifying outside of flights. So we've been really pushing into now non-flight related products and services. And so that has been great because we really worked on the brand and our position. So it's been actually a real advantage to us.
So in terms of the landscape that's out there, the fact that you have these multiple brands, and the fact that they are kind of almost considered maybe local brands in some of the markets that they're in, has really allowed you to continue to compete in the marketplace, even with some of the giants that are out there. And then also, like you said, you're air focused, and that's been successful for you. But now you are thinking to diversify. So what was that kind of? How did you come to that different strategy, that diversification strategy, after so many years of being so air-focused?
Yeah, it was really a reflection upon kind of, let's say, strengths of the company. And one of the strengths was the brand, in the sense the position. Because really, when you're sitting number 1 or number 2 in a marketplace, it's a great position to be in. It really is. And we figured we didn't feel that we were at the level of customer satisfaction we need to be. And so we've really worked on that. At the same time, we also worked on, and one of our disadvantages was, even though we were number 1 or number 2 in all these countries, we were never set up our systems to be able to just develop something once and push it out to all the countries. Instead, what we did is we had a TravelLink systems for the Nordics, we had the eDreams Spain systems, we had eDreams Italy systems, we had Go Voyage, we had Apoto Germany. We had all these different systems, and I'm talking about in terms of website development, in terms of payments, in terms of contact centers. None of it was integrated. So we really worked on creating one stack, one flow through. So now today, when a developer or development set really develop something, they push out instantaneously to really 43 countries, 4 brands, 20 languages, 30 currencies. Boom, just like that. But that we worked, we did spend a lot of time and effort to really make that work. And so that was part of the strategy, coupled with the fact that if we had this really good brand, we saw from the research that look, customers are willing to buy other products and services from the same company as long as you give them a good service. And so that's what we've worked on, and so we've started to add additional products and services. And customers have really responded very favorably.
So what are some of them? So now, hotel is one, but how are you sourcing your hotel?
Yeah, so we source hotels through multiple ways. So we source it through a number of third-party providers. So we have a platform that integrates a number of third-party providers in it, and then we have our own hotel content as well. And the platform simply looks at, where do we offer the best price to the consumer for that, and then we serve up that hotel for it. And so that would be one. There's other types of products where we build all together, right, them on a standalone basis, so we don't have, a choice between, our own versus someone else. And then there's other ones where we just choose to use a third-party provider, and that's it. And we really do it just based upon build versus buy and the economics of it for us and our priorities. If I give you an example, let's say 4 years ago, we were selling less than 10 additional products and services for every 100 flights. Today, we sell 60 additional products and services for every 100 flights. So that's just shows you just the dimension of change in there.
But air is still, more than 95% of transactions?
No. I mean, again, it depends upon what you mean by a transaction, but no, it wouldn't be at all. If I look at it in terms of revenue, I'm doing this just in gross big numbers, but just roughly our revenues would be 40% from, let's say, the flight service fee, from the flight ticket. 40% would be from non-flight ticket service fee types of things. So those would be dynamic packages, hotels, cars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then another, basically 20% would be other.
Okay. So there was a news last year that you were for sale. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you were off the market. What happened?
Yeah. So we're a publicly listed company. And so really in just the pre-autumn of last year, a couple of companies came to us and expressed interest in us. We weren't, let's say, quote, up for sale, but any publicly listed company always has that as part of being publicly listed. And so we then said, as a publicly listed company, let's do a review of the company, valuation, a fair valuation of the company, and just try to work through what we want to do strategically for it, and then run a proper evaluation process. So we appointed Morgan Stanley. And that's basically what we did. And we went through the process, and we came to the end, and we felt that, look, it is better for us and for our existing shareholders, and what we believe is the intrinsic value, is to continue to operate and execute on our plans and on our transformation and some of these new products and services, as opposed to, give it over to someone else.
So there are so many things to do, because now you're not on the market anymore. You're laying down this strategy, diversifying the business, trying to get away from just being dependent on air, which you said is moving in the right direction. By the way, do you plan to also partner with hotels, or is your strategy to continue using third parties for inventory?
No, it's both, quite frankly. So we do use a series of third-party providers for hotels, and again, depending upon how attractive that is, we will continue to do that. At the same time, we also have our own inventory, And so we continue to use that as well, our own inventory, meaning going direct to the hoteliers and building that as well.
Okay. So building supply,
Yes.
right, in the hotel space, expansion in new markets, which we haven't talked about yet, and a better air product. How do you prioritize those three?
It's a good question. Look, I think we have to do all of the things, but what we do really prioritize is a couple of emphasis. One is we prioritize actually mobile, right? So developing things more for a mobile than a desktop or a non-mobile type of environment. And so that skews some of our development choices.
37% now booked through mobile, correct?
Yeah, we actually even are higher than that. Yeah,
okay.
we keep
Where are you
growing.
now?
We'll find out in 2 weeks, but we keep adding a number of percentages.
And are people booking like on mobile, like it's more than point to point? Are they buying ancillaries?
Yes. So absolutely. So that's why. And I think it's just going up the life cycle, meaning when you get to kind of 40% versus 20%, you get a different set of transactions, right? And probably when we get to 50 and 60%, we'll get another different set of transactions. But it keeps going on. So starting at like kind of the 20% was really, point to point, low cost, short time duration before departure, and really not ancillaries, so to speak. And then as you go up and up and up, you start getting more. You start getting long haul. You start getting, not just point to point, but stopovers. You start getting, additional, ancillary revenues, from it. And so we've been doing a lot of that. We also use, quite frankly, we use AI very much so in the mobile experience and in the background.
What way? How?
The screen size is just so much smaller. I mean, a simple mobile is like this, a desktop is like that. And so you can see on a desktop maybe 10 results above the fold. On a mobile, you can see like 2 results kind of on the screen, and that's it. And so what is the 2 that you serve a person, right? What are those 2? And so we really use AI, or I should say machine-based learning, to really figure out from all the data points that we have, what we would likely this customer would want to receive, right? And so there's lots of data that we actually collect in order to be able to do that, both in terms of if we've already done a transaction with us, but even if you haven't, there's loads amounts of data that we already get up front in it that we can actually use. And sometimes if we have enough of that, we can actually make a probabilistic guess of who the individual actually is, and then draw upon their profile, and then be able to really tailor that to the screen. And so then that just makes the customer's life much easier in terms of what are the 2 results that they actually see.
AI is for real.
Yeah. Well, for us, it absolutely is. We definitely use it throughout our business, and that's just one example, but yes.
Okay. So in terms of what's next, so because you obviously you rolled up these several brands, mostly in Southern Europe.
Pardon?
The brands that you rolled up, that Poto and Travel-Link, Go Voyage in Southern Europe. So when you think about expanding throughout Europe, and I guess number 1 and number 2 outside of Europe, how do you do that? Like, because are there more of these local OTAs out there that you can acquire, or is this going to have to happen organically?
Yeah. So again, within kind of the main European part of Europe, we are very, very strong, right? And so for that, it's really about us executing on our strategy. When I look at outside of Europe, it is fair to say that we don't have the same history and the same, therefore, brand strength. So instead of having 20 years history in all countries, we may have 2, 3, 5 years history. And so it's much less. And so that is more about our products and services and really building on them and being creative about that and experimenting in those different markets. In terms of, if you're saying in terms of acquisitions, I think we would less look towards acquisitions to really build in many of those countries. It is a possibility. We look much more for capabilities, though, in type of ways.
What are some of the capabilities or some of the gaps that you'd like to fill?
So, for example, one of the ones that we did more recently was when we bought Budget Places. That was around the hotels and helping us really do dynamic packages much better. And that was just simply a build versus buy thing. And they had really good capabilities and systems in there. They had good people as well. And so that's really why we looked for it and we bought them. And that helped us accelerate significantly our plan. And so with dynamic packages now, the last quarter, versus a year ago, we had grown over 100% on that in dynamic packages alone. And so we really, and part of that was down to us just having the capability and the platform that we bought about 18 months ago. So those are the types of things that we really look for.
Okay.
Lorraine,
yes.
we have a question from the audience.
Hi, I am Elon. My question is, what is your strategy about ground transportation, especially long-distance buses? So this is a huge market in Europe, and as I know, you are not serving it.
Yeah. So in terms of ground transportation, it's an attractive market all over the globe. For us, it's a question of priorities. We used to be a flight-only type of company. And so it's where's, a set of resources, where we'd have the biggest, in a sense, bang for the buck and biggest return for us. And we walk down that prioritization schedule. And so for us, the priority is absolutely around dynamic packages, right? And so even though we bought this company, even though we've actually, on top of the resources within that company, we doubled the resources and we doubled it yet again, we still believe that we have a long way to go in our dynamic package product, right? I don't want to build just kind of something good, but something great, something that is really, really great for the customer and great for us from a competitive point of view. So we still have lots more iterations on the dynamic package as part of the product. There's other ones, there's other ancillaries as well that are very big categories and that fit very naturally with a flight company. Because again, on average, customers first purchase a flight before they purchase other travel products. And since we have already spent the money, the marketing money, so to speak, on the flight, it's then now trying to sell other products and services that really don't have much of a marketing cost per se, so to speak, attached with them for us. And it's figuring out what are the biggest categories. And so there's other categories that are more important to us right now than ground transportation. So dynamic packages is a much bigger opportunity for us that sells a flight and a hotel. There's other flight-related ancillaries products as well that are much bigger types of categories for us. And then, yes, at some point in time, we will absolutely get to ground transportation.
What are some of the most popular flight ancillary products?
Well, let me divide it into two buckets. One would be the traditional ones you just think about as bags and seats, right? So very, very simple. And then the second one is, let's say, more newer, more innovative ones that kind of leverage scale, leverage a position that we have or that an OTA has. And so those would be, for example, cancel for any reason type of product or flexible ticket type of product that we create. Again, because we are 30% of the OTA market, we really see the marketplace. And so we have all these customers that come to us, and yet they want to sometimes change their ticket, right? And in a European context, typically, because we're a leisure company, most of the time the change fee for an airline is like 100, 150, even more euros. So basically it means just throw your ticket in the trash, in the bin, and then just buy a new ticket. What we figured out is we can create a product that's at a much lower price point, let's say maybe 30 euros or something like that, depending upon your ticket size, and we offer that to the customer. And not only that, but if the customer wants to change, they're not just changing within that airline, meaning so if I've booked X airline, we don't restrict you to just book with X airline. We offer 600 airlines, so if you want to change that ticket, you can go to 599 other airlines as well. That's unique. Airlines can't offer that.
That's something you're doing unique.
Airlines can't offer that at all. And so that's just one example, but there's others like that where customers really like them and they've really contributed to our growth in the, let's say, the non-flight only types of products and services.
Right. Just quickly, private accommodation, of course, another big topic, and activities. Are you looking at those two as well?
So we are, but again, it would just be a question of priorities, a question of resources. So, activities, or a lot in Europe call them in-destination services or local services. We absolutely are looking at those and to seeing what we can do. Again, it's a question of just priority in terms of, I want to make sure that what we do really well. We don't just do things kind of really mediocre half and just keep moving on. And so when we get the time, we will absolutely focus, and if we can find a good, attractive proposition for it, we absolutely will do it. And it doesn't necessarily mean to be that we will absolutely build it. We can also buy it or we can use a third-party one, because then one of our big strengths is our brands. Our brands are so strong, and we've proven the ability to cross-sell and upsell so many products and services.
Are you coming into the U.S.?
We're in the U.S. We're small, though. So we've been in the U.S. for, I don't know, maybe 5 years now.
Right. But you're going to put any more
And we...
marketing into it? Or?
Look, the U.S. is a different market and a different set of dynamics for us. And we're much better in focusing on a number of other regions in terms of it. But we grow. We grow it well over, double digits. So the U.S. is a very attractive market for us. But just in the scheme of things, our brand strength to be able to cross-sell is much more in the European and even to a certain extent in some Asian countries for us.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. Ladies and gentlemen, Dana Dunne.
Thank you. Thank you.